Hey there, welcome to episode 79 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I'm your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Today we're going to speak about volunteer time management and value. That sounds very clinical, but it is important, and it's one of the fundamental tenets that we are basing our organization upon. It's worth talking about. It's actually worth building up our Agile for Volunteers practices and principles, or principles and practices, if you like. So let's talk about volunteer time management and value. I will point out that we are a Nevada nonprofit, 501c3 public charity. Everything we do is focused on civic volunteerism and community elevation. Communities in and around Greater Vegas and beyond. Could be anywhere. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you are able to see the episode description, wherein we will share our show notes together right now. I will read you the summary, which appears in those show notes, and I will review the 4 links this week. The 3 are the usual. It used to be 2 usual. I think before that it was no usual. But anyway, there are 4 links this week. We'll get into that. So let's begin. The show notes for this week's episode. Summary. The volunteer time is gold, as we say here at the foundation. And so we endeavor to shine light upon it. And to best do that, we need to write things down. We need to know who is volunteering, where to gold at. Knowing who did what for which project is important. Projects, plural even. Not only for giving due credit, but for managing the resources volunteered, not only by one, but by all concerned, especially when there is collaboration involved. In other words, we all need to know what the other is doing so that we can work together. The links for this week's episode, like I said, pretty much the usual suspects. Our website, innovateforvegas.org. It's our boring homepage with the basics that really needs to be updated now with our new board member, Sean Dean. Sean Looker stepped down after about 2 years helping us get rebooted. Sean Looker was the co-founder and co-captain of the original Code for Vegas. So he was a great help, even though he's no longer in the Greater Vegas area. He was great help getting us up and running. So after 2 years, he wished us the best of luck. We did the same to him, and we added a different Sean, so we can use the same name tags. So yeah, Sean Dean, need to update our website. So if it's not updated when you look at it, it's because it's not at the top of the to-do list, which is annoying. Anyway, one of these days we'll do some discussions on the minutia of such things. But in the meantime, innovateforvegas.org, innovate for Vegas, FOR, no dashes, hyphens, spaces, or otherwise. Our GitHub organization, and by the way, GitHub does have a GitHub for Nonprofits program. We, as a legitimate, determined 501c3 public charity, were and are entitled to and make use of the GitHub for Nonprofit Teams tier. So we get a bunch of features gratis thanks to GitHub and I guess Microsoft. So that's always nice. So github.com/innovateforvegas. Once again, FOR, no spaces, hyphens, dashes, otherwise. Innovate for FOR Vegas. So you can see some of the things we are working on. We have an initiative that we started back in October of 2022 in a discussion forum. There is a GitHub organization for that, and here there is a dash or a hyphen. It is Project Act. The GitHub organization is at github.com/project-act, and I think, I can never remember, is it a dash or a hyphen, but it's probably a key next to the 0 on your keyboard. So if you want to visit that website, it's Project Act, project-act, ACT, and that will bring you to there. We don't actually have a real, quote unquote, real website for that yet. That will be in the offing very soon. We're working on the tessellation, so ACT, autonomous cohort tessellation. If you can imagine a mosaic, which is what a tessellation is, of civic volunteer organizations around the country and perhaps beyond, so that we can easily discover and visit and learn more about civic volunteers, individuals, cohorts, nonprofits, etc., so that they are not relegated to a slide deck of individuals contributing their time, effort, and expertise. Put those people front and center in the work that they're doing. So Project ACT is aimed at that. It's a bottom-up process for not only discovering what other people are working on, but also connecting, communicating, and collaborating. It's an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to civic volunteerism and collaboration. Without a top-down central authority, central planning, this puts it empowers the people doing the work, the volunteers themselves, to drive those connections and to determine levels of collaboration and so on. So Project ACT is a non-trivial undertaking. You can follow that link. There will be 2 websites. And as you can tell, websites are not our top priority just yet. But there will be 2 websites, one aimed at the actual autonomous cohorts, and one aimed at the rest of the world. So you can easily find who's working on what, who is volunteering their time for the elevation of communities near and far. GitHub.com/project-ACT. I got to look that up and find out officially what that key is called. It has a Unicode name, I'm sure, and it definitely has a key code. Project-ACT. Project-ACT. And the website eventually will be project-act.info and project-act.world when we get to that point. Agile for Volunteers is something that we'll talk about briefly today. I've talked about it previously. The Agile Manifesto was published in February of 2001. It's been around for a while, and it not always well understood. The Agile Industrial Complex, as some people call it, has turned into a training oasis where people can offer their services, telling others how to do Agile for the purposes of managing your managers, for assigning work and measuring output of your development team, other things that it was not really intended to do. So we've gotten back to the first principles as published in the Agile Manifesto, and we're trying to build a collection of principles and practices that will help to make the most of volunteer time so that we can manage it and value it. And when I say we, I don't mean that in the sense of a sort of a management infrastructure with project managers and Gantt charts or PERT charts. PERT charts are better, by the way. Not talking about budgeting and headcounts and things like that. Because ours is an all-volunteer organization, it's sort of a whole team approach, not only to advancing the work on each initiative and its component projects, but also figuring out who's working on what, so that we are not looking at each other wondering whatever happened to that one person who was working on that one thing that we all need to have done so that we can put our parts in there. So communication and, again, principles, practices all come together. So Agile for Volunteers will hopefully enable some of that, and it will be, as with everything we're working on, open for others to make use of and collaborate on to make it better. Did that come out? To make it better? I think we have fire warnings here in Vegas. I don't know if that means there is a fire, particulates in the air, but this whole summer my voice has been fighting with me, and my podcast efforts, my audio program productions have been a challenge. Thanks for playing along. So let's talk about volunteer time. As always, it's gold, like I said. The reason I say that is because once upon a time, there was a national organization that received a lot of money. It's a charity. It had paid employees, and the paid employees were telling volunteers what to do. So you're giving direction to volunteers in a top-down management structure based on project agreements and arrangements with maybe government organizations or whomever the projects are arranged. Could be with local, county level governments. I know that there was at least one budget line item approved here in Clark County, where Las Vegas is located, to work with this organization to develop a process, software components to do the same for sealing some conviction records, some criminal case records that were no longer relevant thanks to changes in the law and so on. So there was an actual payment arrangement made, and some of the project work may have been done by volunteers. Now, I actually participated in this exercise. I reached out to that organization and said, hey, you just announced a different project. It wasn't the same one I referred to. You just announced this project, and I went to the website that's part of the announcement, and there's only mention of your organization and the people that were driving the project who worked on the project. Was there volunteer time? The answer was, oh, I can get that for you. It's so difficult to keep track of. It's if only we had computers or something. So to me, that was something of an insult to have paid employees directing the efforts of volunteers and then not giving credit to the volunteers. If you're going to advertise volunteers, civic volunteers, making a difference, they deserve, if not money like the paid employees, at the very least, some sort of attribution. So attribution, recognition, maybe even celebration, whenever possible. It should be high on the list. It should not be an afterthought. It should not be, oh, it's so difficult. Send me an email. Maybe I can get a list of people. No. That should already be above the fold. Here's the list of people who made this project happen. Not, hey, let us know if you're curious to know who volunteered their time to make this project happen. And in the open source world, especially software, this is not a new thing. So you're working on open source projects. You have software development efforts. Keeping track of who's doing what, not difficult. Not difficult at all, actually. In an all-volunteer organization, it is important to recognize that all volunteer time, that all time is volunteer time. Excuse me. So anytime somebody is working on a particular initiative or one of its component projects, or collaborating or onboarding a new volunteer who wants to contribute to a project, all that in our organization, and is pretty common, all volunteer time. If two people volunteer to move a couch, for example, and only one shows up to move that couch, that one person who did show up actually wasted their time, believe it or not, because the other end of the couch is not going to move itself. That's why the two people agreed, hey, let's show up at this time and place, perform this task. It will be possible because we will do it together. Now, unless you're a paid furniture mover, you may feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. I know I said I was going to, but something came up. That's a Brady Bunch reference for our old school listeners. So volunteers must also recognize the volunteer time of their collaborators. So me being a volunteer is fine. If I don't appreciate the fact that you are also a volunteer at the other end of that couch, then I'm missing something. And our entire foundation culture should be geared towards not missing that, to understanding that, again, all volunteer time is gold. The reason I say it's gold, again, is because of this experience I had where you're not putting the volunteers up into the sunlight. They should all get some sunlight. They should all sparkle and shine, right? So it's maybe a little bit campy, an analogy, but not inappropriate. It all begins with personal motivation. Why show up if there is no specific direct financial incentive? Well, the desire and motivation to volunteer one's time, effort, and expertise for a community elevation project is the beginning of that personal return on investment. So even though you're not getting cash in your hand, maybe you're not even getting free food. That's a common request. Is there going to be free food? maybe you just want to do it to see if you can make it work. Maybe you want to learn from others. Maybe you are just getting started with a career change. Maybe you have an innate talent for doing something that would help with the overall initiative or one of the component projects. Maybe you have artistic talent. Maybe you speak multiple languages and you realize that community elevation will have positive outcomes. Maybe it'll fix a problem that you appreciate in your surroundings. Maybe it affects you or your friends or family, whatever it might be. Our open transit project, our information sharing platform, the MyMuni and Welcome projects, for examples. So you may believe, hey, I can put some time into this. I think some outcome would be a positive for my community and my friends and family or my colleagues or whomever. So oftentimes the beginning of civic volunteerism is exactly $0. It is entirely from within. Of course, there may be, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of being part of a team or a group of people working on something, the opportunity to learn from others. These are all good reasons. They're all great. But the beginning of that path has to begin with internal motivation. There is no benefits package with a big salary to get you in the door. So it has to come from you. Perhaps some actual returns are possible. That is part of our overall plan, which I've talked about previously, a value for value model. I often tell people, honestly, I don't want people to work for free, and that includes me. But I need you to be willing to work for free in a civic volunteer organization. If you walk in the door asking where the food is or what's in it for me, you should already know that answer. When we deploy things, we haven't gone out and gotten seed funding. We haven't gone out and received venture capital. We're not on the hook, beholden to funding sources. We're doing this for ourselves and the people around us, our communities, near and far, and so on. So when we reach that point, in a perfect world, the world will look back upon these efforts and reward them in some way. This may be something on your resume. It may be a job opportunity that arises from notoriety. Oh, did you work on this? Can you work on my version of this? Can you join my company? Do you want to be a part of my startup? You may want to form a startup with the people you worked on and collaborated with on a particular civic volunteer project. All of these things are possible. And it may well be that we're able to monetize a deployed project. None of these are new business models, actually. So the value for value model would enable people to donate not only to our 501c3 organization, but perhaps directly to individual contributors, to teams, by making the people who enable projects to work. And I'm not talking just the coders. I mean, everyone. I was just in QA. Oh, well, you're on the list. I've actually heard this from some people who have been involved in civic volunteer projects. Hey, how come you're not in the contributors? There's a file that is usually found in a GitHub repository called contributors. GitHub itself keeps track of contributors to a project, which I'll get into in a moment. So the reason to put that information into a text file that is included with the rest of the items in a project is so that if anyone wants to clone or otherwise make use of that project or learn more about it or do whatever they want to do with it, it's not a matter of accessing this information on GitHub. You're not making use of the platform. You move that information into a corresponding text file that follows the rest of the project wherever it may go. So by listing all contributors to a project, you make them and their efforts visible to others. Hey, I'm looking for a language translator. Who did oh, I see the two people who did the translation into a couple of different languages for this Innovate for Vegas project. Interesting. I wonder if they could work on my project. And so on. Visual, audio components and assets and user interface design, software development, testing, marketing, storytelling. The list goes on. Not everything is code. So people who contribute to projects and make them go are not necessarily programmers, yet the value of their contribution is often substantial, sometimes essential. but should always be recognized. And so that's one of our goals. And then if there is a benefit to be received in some way, the people who worked on the project should not be hidden away behind a contact me and I will try to get a list together. No. That should be front and center. That's the approach. So you have to begin the journey by powering your efforts with personal satisfaction, at least initially. I'm here because I want to be, because I'm interested and curious, and I want to see some sort of outcome. I want to learn from others. I want to work with others. I want to share with others. But it all has to sort of come from within. Nothing will nullify that contribution of time, effort, and expertise like the apathy of others. And it could be the apathy of the public at large. They may not see the value of a civic volunteer project. Like, we didn't need open transit, we needed open water. I doubt that would happen. But that could be. However, even worse is when the apathy comes from fellow volunteers who are supposed to be working on the same or related projects. They're interdependent. They're collaborating in such a way as I may be waiting for you to finish your part so that I can make use of my part. And if you aren't satisfied and you choose to disappear, then you leave me hanging, and now my volunteer is at risk. My volunteer time is at risk. My effort is at risk. My expertise has been wasted. Well, let's hope not. Where there's a will, there's a way to get around that. But wouldn't it be cool if we were not in that situation? So communication is key. There is a bit of a catch-22 when it comes to this stuff. We have to overcome that. Volunteers are not required to communicate, yet they must communicate. We cannot really require people to do anything. You kind of have to go with that internal, the personal satisfaction as a motivator. If you don't communicate, I can't really fire you. I can't penalize you. I can't dock your pay, as they say. You're not financially liable. We don't owe you any money, and you don't owe us your time. You owe you your time. And if you commit to other members of a team working on a project component or an overall initiative, you owe them your time. But as far as the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, we're not a software company. We don't have employees. We're not offering paychecks. We have no contractual agreements. Everything is very personal, very, very driven from within, but also the commitment to others that you're working with. So again, you're not committing to the foundation, you're committing to fellow team members. And critical to note, every single person that you are committing to in that way, working on projects with you or near you, also volunteers. So there are two ways to prompt minimal communication, because communication is important whether you're being paid or not. We can build in communication to the workflow, which is what the Agile iteration scheme represents. It's a commitment when you agree, I am going to work on these things, these tasks that are a part of a component project, which is part of the overall initiative, right? So these are some buzzwords that will appear in our Agile for Volunteers glossary. When you take on those tasks for an iteration, a 2-week iteration, for example, you are committing, you're communicating your commitment to start to spend your effort, your time, your expertise on those tasks. At the end of the iteration, we will reflect on what worked and what didn't. What did we learn? How can we begin the next iteration having learned those things? Were you able to complete some things? Were you able to complete some of the tasks or some partial completion? How can we roll them over into the future? Some of these will kind of require communication, even a little bit, passively perhaps. Maybe add a comment. Every task is a GitHub issue. If you're not familiar with GitHub, then you can be very quickly. It's not magic. If you know how to post on Facebook, you know how to post on GitHub. So if you can post a comment in a discussion or on your task that you are working on, or the tasks and discussions of others, you are communicating. Look at that. When you commit an update to a repository, when you say, oh, okay, I finished this task, let me add it to the overall project component, you commit it. You say, I'm ready to commit this. This is committed now to the total work. It's like when you finish a chapter in a book, You may not have added it to the book yet, so you add it to the book, and now that chapter is a part of that book. You've committed it to the story. Atomic teams and Agile for Volunteers make the iteration even more important to the actual team makeup. Atomic teams means that you are part of a team during an iteration. You don't have to be a part of that team forever. So it asks for a minimal commitment during the iteration to be a part of an atomic team. That is the participant saying, yes, I'm on this team. At the end of this iteration, I don't have to be a part of this team anymore. Maybe this wasn't for me. Maybe I don't have the time. Maybe I'm not interested in this after one iteration. But you're part of an atomic team. When you join the team, before, during, after, you need to communicate minimally, at least passively, what's getting done, how others might depend on what you're working on, vice versa. So it asks for a very minimal amount of participation. Hopefully that's why you agreed to participate in that iteration, because you wanted to do that. Silence during an iteration indicates diminished interest. Like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Silence before or after, or both, indicates lack of interest. So since volunteer projects are fueled by personal interest, that personal satisfaction motivator, in their progress and outcomes, those without interest need not participate. So if you, or if someone, I'm not accusing you of anything, the general case, someone, if you commit to some tasks during an iteration, so you're going to work on something for 2 weeks and you decide, this is not for me, I'm just going to disappear. That's certainly diminished interest. You may leave other people hanging. They may be saying, I was waiting for that one task to be wrapped up and the changes committed to the project so that I could add my related contributions. Now we need to replace that effort with the effort of someone else. That happens. People are free to go whenever they like. And if they decide they don't want to communicate that, then it's not likely there will be much other communication. While communication cannot be compelled, it's a really low bar. Without communication, the participation of others, the contribution of their time, effort, and expertise is essentially discounted. And that is where the group and the individual may need to part ways. So what often is the case, this is my personal observation, this is especially true with perhaps people who are a little bit closer to the beginning of a career or the beginning of a career change. If I'm volunteering my time and I decide to stop volunteering my time, that's it. That's my decision to make, and it doesn't, who cares what other people might think of that, because it's my time, not their time. What they fail to realize is that it is their time that they are matching against your time. The couch example applies. So if you decide to drop your end of the couch at any given time, the person at the other end of the couch will be saying, hey, wait a minute, you agreed to help move this couch. And if you say, and again, not you, but this fictitious character says, yeah, I decided not to move the couch anymore. That has impact on the people volunteering their time to move the couch, even if you're not one of them anymore. So this is not going to be a frequent occurrence, right? Very quickly we see maybe couch moving is not for you. These are real skills. The ability to connect, commitment, and communication when it comes to volunteer projects and initiatives is not only a job skill, but a life skill. If you commit to something that asks of others and you do not communicate, you haven't learned yet. So again, if you are committing to moving that couch, but you haven't told the other person or people, I can't make it, but you committed to doing it. Yeah, but I couldn't make it. Well, you didn't tell anyone. Well, I just figured I'm a volunteer. I don't have to tell anybody what I'm doing. That's what happens when you don't value the volunteer contributions of others. This happens. It happens all the time. And again, it's usually with people who are a little bit newer to the game. It's a job skill to learn. I don't think people are just born with it. So it's not necessarily a blame, but it is something that has to be accounted for. You cannot waste the volunteer time of others. You just can't. We can't. You can't. They can't. We can't. Showing up or not showing up are forms of communication, actually. Not showing up is not the sort of communication we're hoping for. You are silently communicating a disdain for others. I do not value your volunteer time. So I'm not going to tell you that I can't show up, that I won't show up, that I will never show up again. I'll let you figure that out. I'll let you spin your wheels, spend your time, hold up your end of the couch, and wait. Whether paid or volunteer, whether in a workplace or among friends or family, this is an essential skill to be able to follow through. Let others who are depending on your participation know if you are delayed or disappeared. It is the bare minimum. Not doing so is not a skill. It is a disappointment. So not communicating is not a skill. It is a disappointment. I often use another example, which is a bucket brigade. If you're not familiar, that's how you, in the absence of better means, we have one bucket or we have a few buckets and we need to move liquids or solids or whatever. It doesn't have to be a bucket. It could be bags. It could be anything. You form a line from source to destination or vice versa. Someone puts the liquid in the bucket or the thing in the bucket or fills the bag with the whatever, passes it to the next person between the source and the destination. That person passes it to the next. So when you agree to be in a bucket brigade, the example I give is if you volunteer to be a volunteer firefighter and you say, yes, I will be a volunteer firefighter. And then you get the call, oh, did I have to show up to the fire? Oh, yeah. Well, I thought I was just a volunteer I was going to volunteer firefighter. I didn't have to show up. Well, your slot in the bucket brigade was empty, so that meant it was more difficult for the other volunteers to participate in the bucket brigade, to do the thing that we needed to do, that you agreed to do, but you chose to not tell anyone that you were. We could have filled in your spot with somebody else. But without communication, you're telling us you are not interested in participating. And that's how it would be taken. And this is just it's a skill. It's a skill that not everyone has. We need to value others. That's the bottom line. We ask all Civic Volunteer contributors to use GitHub. Why? Why on earth we do that? Well, first of all, it's free. We have the team tier for free, thanks to our being a determined 501c3 public charity. Thank you, Microsoft and GitHub, once again. So it's a tool that works. Is it perfect? No. It's a big ask for some, though, because many people believe that GitHub is for programmer. I'm not a software engineer. I'm not a programmer. I don't know. I'm not a coder. I don't know what this is. But as I mentioned earlier, if you can post on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you can post in a discussion forum on GitHub. You can comment on an issue. Hey, I'm going to test this project you guys are working on. You people, neither sounds good. Hey, I want to be a part of this team working on a component project for this initiative, and I'd like to be a tester. I want to be a normal, everyday person trying out what you're working on. Okay, great. Sign up for GitHub. What? I'm not a coder. That is okay. So you sign up for GitHub, you join our organization, you're on a component project team and you're part of the initiative team. Okay, you're testing and you found an issue. Guess what? You can create an issue against the component project that you're testing. And you just type in words. You don't have to be a programmer. All you have to do is say, this is what I saw. This is what I would have expected. This is what actually happened. So I was trying to do this. I thought it would do that. It actually did this other thing, which seems like a bug or a defect. And you have used GitHub. There you go. You didn't have to write any code. You just had to describe something like a normal person. But because you created a GitHub issue, we attach it to the component project repository. Someone who is working on the project as a coder, and it doesn't even have to be a software project. It could be a hardware project, or it could be a documentation project. It could be anything. So the person that's going to look at that and then make a determination about how to fix it and then actually fix it can use the very same tools to do that. And now at the end of the day, we have one person who found a QA issue who was doing some testing. We have one person who triaged the issue and determined how to fix it, and then maybe they fix it. Maybe we have another person to actually fix it. Who knows? All those people have contributed to the project. We don't need to keep a separate spreadsheet. We don't need to have some other secret list that is not available to other people. You have contributed to the project automatically just because you're participating in our GitHub workflow. So it's really not a big ask once we get over the fact that GitHub has tools for projects that we are making use of, not only for programmers. So yes, Git is itself really a sort of a software development tool, although it is really a text file change management tool. So if you are keeping notes in text files, if you're working on your resume, if you're working on a book, you can store those things in Git or GitHub or GitLab or BitKeeper or any number of variants. You don't need to be a programmer. You can make use of a tool that literally saves text files. So you can always go back in time. Who changed this text file? Which parts of it changed? Can I go back to the version from 2 weeks ago? Yes, you can. So it's a useful tool, but it does have GitHub has additional project management components, has projects, discussions, wikis, issues. Is that it? There might be more. There are some insight graphs. You can keep track of changiness and so on. So if we make use of those tools, then we can help to not only account for volunteer time and value it so that we can distribute contributor information to those who want it. And by the way, if you opt out of that, hey, I don't really want my name on this. GitHub has a anonymization scheme, so your email need not be published, and you don't have to use your real name. And if you decide you don't want to be reachable, you don't have to use your real name. You don't have to use your real email address. You don't even have to be in the contributor list. GitHub does keep track of the account username that made a change or filed a bug or a defect or made a discussion comment, etc. But again, you don't have to use your real name if you don't want to. So opting out could be explicit or implicit, or you can just opt in. Say, yeah, I would like credit for my work. Both cases work. But if we always assume that people probably want credit for their work, then we should make that easy. We should make it the norm, not something that we have. Oh, I didn't even think of that. I didn't think people would ever ask who worked on this project as volunteers. We thought we would just give credit to the people we were paying. That seems unacceptable. So Agile for Volunteers breaks initiatives, a top-level initiative, into plans and tasks. Plans are, here's what we want to do, here's what we want to build, here's what we want to make, here are the people we're doing this for, here are the people that will be using the thing that we're making and the ways they're going to use it, what are their expectations, etc. Tasks are, okay, now we know what the plans are, now we have to do them. They're always subject to discussion and adaptation. That means that the entire Agile for Volunteers process is itself something of an initiative, definitely a project. So that if at some point someone says, you know what would work better, tell me more. So these are not rules handed down on high. These are, just like the Agile Manifesto, they're principles and practices, always subject to adaptation, to improvement, to iteration, discussion, and so on. So if we create a thick initiative specification, we are in a position to dictate to others what they should be working on and how to do it. But we're not a big giant company. We don't have any accounts payable or payroll department, so nobody's getting paid for their time, especially the person that's writing this big giant specification. So many times what those who've experienced what has become of Agile, some people will call it Scrum, some people will call it extreme programming. These are all different things, but they're all sort of interrelated. They have influenced each other. Extreme programming came first, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Scrum actually integrated some Agile, and Agile sort of was influenced by both extreme programming and Scrum. And then there's Safe and who knows what else. So there's always a variation. The question is whether it works or not. And if you are being told, maybe in your workplace, if you're being told this is how Agile for Volunteers works without being offered an opportunity to ask, does Agile for Volunteers work? And the ability to offer some constructive criticism or suggestions or fixes. You're probably not in a organization that has adopted the whole team notion of Agile, which is important. You're asking creative people to volunteer their time, effort, and expertise. They should have a similar amount of a similar opportunity to contribute their insights into how their time, effort, and expertise, and the time, effort, and expertise of others are made use of. Let us tell you how you're volunteering your time. Nothing works universally. That should be a given by now. Our whole team can collaborate from bottom to top, inside to outside, using tools like GitHub with issues and discussions and external components. This is something that will not be completely easy to describe, but GitHub can be used even though the thing you are working on, maybe if you're working on a sculpture as part of a component project that requires some mechanical manifestation. You're working on a case or an artistic sculpture or signage or something. So there will be a real world component, and that's not software. That can't possibly be in GitHub. Well, you can still keep track of the effort that goes into this, so that along the way we can say, oh, look, that part of it is done, and that's who did it. So even though the thing you are doing is not explicitly, if we can put air quotes up, in GitHub, GitHub can be used to track this effort, so it's never left on the floor. It's never forgotten. Like, oh, who did work on that sculpture? Who was that? Oh, we didn't write it down. Sorry. You'll just have to wonder. So we can use the tools to keep track of the effort no matter what it is. And it's a small ask. We can be sure to include contributors in initiatives and projects regardless of what they're actually doing. So that's the take home. Code is the presumption, of course, but participating across the tools and being sure to communicate with the tools, using the tools, and through the use of the tools with your team is how we can be transparent about how civic volunteers are making things happen. So if you are working on something and you say, oh, I need this other thing to be finished before I can integrate what I'm doing with hey, I need the final copy so that when I create this poster, this signage for this project that will include a physical real world. So I need the words. I need the words that we're gonna be using on this thing. And the person that was writing those words says, I decided to never show up again. I'm disappeared. I'm not even going to tell you that. You're just going to have to guess for yourself. So in the iteration scheme, we would know at the end of the iteration if the person responsible for those words is gone. At the end of the iteration comes, that person is gone. We no longer count on that person. We're no longer waiting on that person. We value the time of all of the volunteers. If one person chooses not to, they should find something else to do. So stay on or get off. If you are a speed fan from way back when, stay on or get off. Stay on or get off. Inviting people who want to participate to do just that is our primary goal. That's why we're developing Agile for Volunteers, principles and practices. And this is another thing that, again, I'll underscore. Many people are told in their workplace that Agile is the rules. This is how you will do things. This is the way things will be done. But the Agile Manifesto is a collection of principles. The whole idea is to make the outcome the goal, not accounting for productivity per se. Even the controversial point system is not about grading people. It's about being able to estimate how much any participant in the project can accomplish over an iteration so that everybody can make use of their volunteer time appropriately. Hey, are you going to be able to finish this in 2 weeks? And, well, this might take 4 weeks. Okay, then my volunteer time will be spent with that in mind so that when you're working over the course of 2 iterations, 2 2-week iterations, we can both expect to come together at the end of that time, the 4 weeks, and we can put our stuff together. I will not be wasting my time spinning, waiting. I can do other things. I can say, hey, I got some time. I can work on this, and then I can work on that. Then as you are coming towards like a completion milestone of some sort, we can come together, have a discussion so we can communicate. And along the way, you might communicate. The person working on the two iteration task along the way may say, hey, you know what? I'm finishing this early. Do you have to say it to the person? No. Do you have to email it to them? You could. Could you update the task comment? Hey, it looks like I'm going to finish this early. Could you add it to a discussion about the iteration? Hey, I know I said I was going to finish this in the next iteration. I'm going to finish it early. Then the other person might say, oh, I can shift some things around and spend my volunteer time on this iteration on our collaborative task, right? So if we actually communicate, we actually make use of some very simple principles and practices and the communication tools of the GitHub platform, which are not magic. They're just in the places where you can always look, right? If you always, the discussion for the iteration is right here, then that's where I'll play. Oh, should I just join Discord, or should I send you a WhatsApp message, or should I email you or call you on the phone? You can do all those things too, but if everybody knows to look right within our projects, hey, look, we're working on this thing, and then right here as part of that thing is a discussion about working on that thing. I know it seems crazy. Reading some words, writing some words, and generally showing up are the bare minimum. So if you can read the words that others have written, you can make some comments, you can write some discussion notes. Just write a little bit. If you're coding, you're probably writing a little bit more. If you're creating ad copy, you're probably writing a little bit more, or not ad copy necessarily, documentation. So some things will involve more adding of words, but in general, hopefully you're able to add some words to a discussion, a collaboration. And then showing up is kind of the bare minimum. And again, if you don't show up at the end of the 2 weeks, the 2-week iteration, if you said you're going to show up and then you don't, that's not a thing that has to be discussed anymore. In a whole team approach, the whole team has the same responsibility, so that not taking the time to read, not taking the time to write and contribute and keep others informed is not being a member of the team. You know, if you're into sports, if a team member throws you the ball and you decide, I'm not going to go over there. And I said I was going to be over there to catch the ball, but I've decided halfway through that I'm going to go ahead and sit down over on the side here. That doesn't work. So the whole team has to be on board, has to be collaborating, even if it's just for 2 weeks. So our atomic team approach makes the assumption, and it might not always be appropriate for everyone. Some people are going to be, hey, I'm going to put in a couple of tasks worth of effort, some time towards those, and share my expertise with this project on a regular basis. So I'll be around every iteration. And then if I have to skip an iteration, I can do that too. And guess what? I'm going to tell you so that you know. And I'm going to tell the whole team so they know, hey, I'm not going to be around for 2 weeks or a month, and then I'll be back. Like, okay, so we'll put off the things you were going to work on and we'll work on other things. Okay, great. Everybody's team has been valued by everyone in the team. The teams could be working with other teams. Our component project breakdown, our factoring of initiatives means that some people might work on a component over here and other people over there, and the two components may not fit together for a long time, or they may be completely unrelated other than the fact that they're part of the same initiative, but they could be completely independent as far as development. That is completely possible. So the awareness of who's doing what and who's collaborating on what also gives opportunity for discussion. Hey, did you encounter something like this when you were working on that thing over there? Oh yeah, we did. We fixed that like this. Oh, did you make a note of that somewhere? I did. I wrote that down in the discussion about this Oh, okay. I didn't even think to look there. Look at that. Look at you contributing to the conversation using the tools at hand. Look how easy that might be. Unfortunately, we've been around for 2 years, and this is not as easy as it sounds. It's a bit of a culture shift for some. For others, it will be a question of, that's just extra work for me, communicating and whatnot. And it's true. Communicating with others sometimes requires some effort. But so does working with others. And if you choose to work with others and have them work with you, but you don't want to tell them anything or give them updates on anything or share updates about anything with anyone, now they have to spend their time to make up for you. And that's not fair. A whole team can work together and succeed together. When someone wants to take from the team, I'm not going to do that. Why should I update that? I'm not going to spend my time doing that. I have better things to do. Rather than give in kind, it becomes evident, perhaps obvious, that such an individual is almost certainly in the wrong place. And that is when the answer is simple. Maybe next time. So that is what we're working on. That is, I've commented on this before, like I said, and we have several projects or initiatives. We'll try to be consistent in how we use our ubiquitous language. If we use the same terms in the same way as frequently as possible, then there is a reduced chance of miscommunication. So initiatives are made up of projects. Initiatives have themes and epics and features and user stories and bugs and defects and tasks, discussions, issues, documentation, back end, front end. So if we account for, how about that? If we account for the different moving parts, if someone from the outside, whatever the outside is, inside, outside, the entire notion of Project ACT, by the way, the autonomous cohort tessellation, is to enable one person, a couple of people, a cohort, a former brigade, a newly formed nonprofit, public charity perhaps, to allow people, to enable and encourage them to reach out to others, someone in some other part of the United States or elsewhere might discover the Open Transit Project for Innovate for Vegas Foundation through this tessellation project and cohort catalog, which is part of Project ACT. They might say, oh, we wanted to work on something very similar to this. Can we collaborate on this? Well, of course, that's why we're doing this. So come on down. Well, how do we figure out which parts are, well, it's all right here. It's spelled out as an initiative with themes and epics and features and tasks and stories. Stories and tasks go together. And here's the iterations and how much progress has been made. And here are various notes on different things we've discovered along the way. Well, don't you have a documentation, like a spec? Don't you have a specification anywhere? Well, we have some specifications on things like GTFS, and we know how latitudes and longitudes work. We know some standards for the GTFS communications protocol, but any ticket purchasing, if there's a bus pass interface to enable a feature of purchasing fares through, whatever comes along, the specifications are probably from outside, because we're developing our project in an iterative and collaborative fashion. So that means along the way, things could change. We may discover by talking to the users, the riders and operators of public transit, we may sit with them on a bus perhaps and say, what do you think of this? And they may tell us something. And instead of going back and saying, oh, now we got to change the specs because we got this totally wrong, we can actually say, well, here's what we discovered, and we're going to tune this. We've discovered that this, as a vision impaired consumer of public transit services, I need to be able to discover route changes without being able to see a notification on my cell phone, because I don't really use my cell phone because I can't see it. Maybe they use it, but not in the ways that a traditional visually oriented developer might be implementing such a thing. So if we discover along the way that we have to adapt our ideas to make our outcomes better, and that is the Agile Manifesto principle, the goal is to ship good things that work, not to be overly focused on grading people. We want to do good things, not grade people. So if we can make it easier for others to discover and say, oh, okay, we see what you're doing there. We hadn't thought about that. Oh, now we can start having learned from you. And by the way, here are some ideas that we have. Maybe we can work together on this. Absolutely. That's the whole thing. Open source, open collaboration, elevating communities. Oftentimes in these post-pandemic times, cohorts will be shorthanded. It could be just one person. But some people actually find they derive some personal satisfaction from applying their expertise over some time with some effort put towards some civic volunteer projects that are aimed at community elevation, whether it's transit, whether it's access to food, whether it's data equity, whether it's how to find the nearest cold weather shelter in the winter, how to find a cool off spot in the summer if you're in a desert like the greater Vegas area. So the list of things is vast. Opportunities to collaborate, similarly vast. So the tools to make the connections, to aid in discovery, to make connection, communication, and collaboration possible, easier, choose the words that might apply in your situation. But also making it easy when you do discover a project. Well, where do I even begin? Where's the specification? All those questions should already be answered. Oh, just start here. Oh, look at this. Oh, you're using Agile. Sort of. If you want to learn about Agile for volunteers, you can start by reading this. And then if you want to make changes, you can. If you think we're doing something wrong or you have a better idea, let's ponder. So it's really not that complicated. It may seem like it is, but it actually is built all around the notion that volunteer time, effort, and expertise are valuable. They should not be wasted. They should not be discounted by one person not realizing that their volunteer time and the volunteer time of others are all meaningful. That's all I got to say for today. Don't forget to check out our website. Don't forget that we are a 501c3 public charity. At some point, when we deploy actual community elevating things, you may be interested in participating as a sponsor or donor to our organization. While I'm not a tax preparation professional and I'm not giving you tax advice, you can check our 501c3 status. We are in the tax-exempt organization database with the IRS. We are a Nevada nonprofit in good standing when last I looked, June 30th, when we filed our annual list update. So you too can participate, whether it's actively contributing to a project or initiative, or maybe you just like to enable some of that free food everybody seems to be looking for. If you'd like to sponsor a pizza party or a hackathon or something, we can certainly talk. But in the meantime, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully, through these various audio programs, we are extending a wide net of understanding so that people understand what we're working on and why and how they can be part of it. And that's where I'll leave it for today. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.